Sometimes the most life-changing moments happen when you're not even paying attention. That's what happened to me. One casual joke changed everything. I paused, looking directly into the camera. If you've ever missed signals from someone who matters to you, stick around. And if this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to see more real stories like mine. The coffee shop buzzed with the familiar weekend crowd. Steam rose from my cup as I watched Emma organize her notes, her dark hair falling across her face as she concentrated. We'd been meeting like this every Saturday morning for 3 years, ever since we both moved to Chicago after college and discovered we lived in the same neighborhood. You know what your problem is? I said, leaning back in my chair. You work too much. When was the last time you even went on a date? Emma rolled her eyes, something she'd perfected over our 15 years of friendship. Says the guy who canceled plans last week to debug code until 3 a.m. That was different. That was a crisis. I grinned, knowing she saw right through me. Right. A crisis. She took a sip of her tea, her eyes meeting mine over the rim of her mug. Besides, dating in this city is exhausting. Everyone's either looking for something casual or they've got more red flags than a parade in Beijing. I laughed, watching how the sunlight through the window caught the amber flecks in her brown eyes. Emma had always been beautiful, but there was something different about her lately. A confidence that hadn't been there before. You should get married, I joked, expecting her usual comeback about independence or career goals. Instead, she set down her mug slowly. Her expression shifted to something I couldn't quite read, vulnerable, yet determined. I would. She said quietly, if you'd just ask. The world stopped. The coffee shop noise faded away. I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. What did you just say? My voice came out barely above a whisper. Emma's cheeks flushed, but she didn't look away. You heard me, Alex. 15 years of friendship flashed before my eyes. Emma at 13, braces and awkward limbs, helping me with algebra. Emma at 18, hugging me goodbye before we left for different colleges. Emma at 22, showing up at my door with a six-pack and pizza when I got laid off from my first job. Emma at 27, now sitting across from me, saying words I never thought I'd hear. Emma, I started, but she was already gathering her things. Forget it. I shouldn't have said anything. Her voice was tight, controlled. I have to go. Before I could process what was happening, she was gone, the bell above the door chiming as it closed behind her. I sat frozen, my coffee growing cold. How had I missed this? Had there been signs? Moments I'd overlooked? The way she always remembered how I liked my coffee, the late-night phone calls about nothing important, how she was the first person I wanted to tell whenever anything happened in my life. My phone buzzed with a text from my roommate, Jake, dude, where are you? We were supposed to meet at the gym an hour ago. I texted back quickly, can't make it. Something happened with Emma. His response was immediate, finally figured it out, huh? What did that mean? Had everyone known except me? I paid for our drinks and stepped outside into the crisp autumn air. The familiar streets of our neighborhood seemed different somehow, as if Emma's words had altered the very landscape of my life. I started walking, not toward my apartment, but toward the lake. It had always been our spot, mine and Emma's, where we went to think, to talk through big decisions, to watch the sunrise after pulling all-nighters in college. The water stretched out before me, vast and blue. I sat on our usual bench, remembering all the conversations we'd had here. How had I never realized what was right in front of me? My phone rang. It was my sister, Lily. Jake called me, she said without preamble. He said something happened with Emma. She basically told me she has feelings for me. The words felt strange coming out of my mouth. Lily was quiet for a moment. And how do you feel about that? I don't know. Confused. Surprised. I paused, trying to sort through the tangle of emotions. Scared. Scared of what? Of ruining everything. She's my best friend, Lily. What if we try this and it doesn't work? I can't lose her. Alex, my sister's voice softened, have you ever considered that maybe you've been in love with her all along? The question hit me like a physical blow. Had I? I thought about how I measured other women against Emma without even realizing it. How no one else's laugh made me feel the same way. How I'd never felt more myself than when I was with her. I have to go, I told Lily, standing up suddenly. Go get her, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I ran. Through the park, past the bookstore where Emma and I spent rainy Sundays, past the Thai restaurant where we celebrated every promotion and milestone. I ran until I reached her apartment building, out of breath and certain in a way I'd never been before. I called her from the lobby, but she didn't answer. The doorman, who knew me well enough after years of visits, let me up with a knowing smile. Standing outside her door, I hesitated. What if I was too late? What if she didn't want to see me? What if I was about to make the biggest mistake of my life, or the best decision I'd ever made? I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. Emma, please. It's me. We need to talk. The door opened slowly. Emma stood there, eyes red-rimmed but chin lifted defiantly. I'm sorry I ran out, she said before I could speak. I shouldn't have put you on the spot like that. We can just forget it happened, Anne. I don't want to forget it happened, I interrupted. I don't want to pretend anymore. She went still. Pretend what? That you're just my friend. That I don't think about you all the time. That I haven't been comparing every woman I've ever dated to you without even realizing it. Her eyes widened. Alex. I've been so blind, Emma. So stupid. You've been right there all along, and I couldn't see what was right in front of me. A tear slipped down her cheek. And what's that? I stepped closer, my heart pounding. That I'm in love with you. That I have been for years. That you're the most important person in my life, and I can't believe it took me this long to figure it out. She didn't move, didn't speak. Just looked at me with those eyes that knew me better than anyone else's. Say something, I whispered. I'm afraid, she admitted. I've wanted this for so long, but what if it changes everything? I reached for her hand, relieved when she didn't pull away. It will change everything. But maybe that's okay. What if we lose each other? We won't. I squeezed her hand. You're stuck with me, Emma Mitchell. Best friend, worst critic, and if you'll have me, something more. A smile broke through her tears. Something more sounds good. I pulled her close, finally allowing myself to feel what had been there all along. When our lips met, it wasn't like the movies, no fireworks or swelling music. It was better. It was coming home. 6 months later, we sat in that same coffee shop, in those same seats. The barista who had witnessed our moment smiled as she brought our usual orders. You know, I said, reaching across the table to take Emma's hand, I never actually asked you that question. She tilted her head. What question? I slid out of my chair, dropping to one knee beside our table. The coffee shop went quiet as I pulled out a small velvet box. Emma Mitchell, you've been my best friend for 15 years. You've seen me at my worst and somehow still love me at my best. Will you marry me? Her smile was brighter than I'd ever seen it. I would, if you'd just ask. The coffee shop erupted in applause as I slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, no longer afraid of what might change, but excited for everything that would. Our wedding day arrived on a perfect June afternoon. As Emma walked down the aisle toward me, I remembered that moment in the coffee shop that had changed everything, one joke, one honest response, and the courage to finally see what had been there all along. Sometimes, I told our guests during my vows, the love of your life is standing right in front of you, just waiting for you to open your eyes. Emma squeezed my hands, tears shining in her eyes. And sometimes, she added, all it takes is one bad joke to find your forever. We built our life together on the foundation of 15 years of friendship. There were challenges, of course. Learning to be partners as well as friends. Navigating our first big fight without the option of walking away. Figuring out how to blend our separate lives into one shared journey. But through it all, we had what many couples spend years trying to build, a deep understanding of each other, a shared history, and the certainty that came from choosing each other not in the heat of passion, but with clear eyes and full hearts. 5 years after that fateful day in the coffee shop, we returned to our spot by the lake. Emma's head rested on my shoulder as we watched our toddler daughter throw bread to the ducks, her laughter carrying across the water. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't made that joke? Emma asked. Or if I hadn't been brave enough to answer honestly? I thought about all the parallel lives we might have lived, as friends who never crossed that line, as people who drifted apart, as strangers who once knew each other well. Sometimes, I admitted. But then I look at you and Lily, and I know we would have found our way here eventually. Emma smiled, leaning up to kiss me softly. How can you be so sure? Because some people are just meant to be together, I said, watching our daughter chase a feather in the wind. And I think we always were. As the sun set over the lake, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I thought about how one moment of honesty had changed the course of our lives. How sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about meeting someone new, but about seeing someone familiar in a whole new light. I love you, I whispered against Emma's hair. Thank you for waiting for me to catch up. She squeezed my hand, her wedding ring catching the last rays of sunlight. Some things are worth waiting for. Our story wasn't perfect. It wasn't always easy. But it was ours, built on friendship, strengthened by honesty, and transformed by the courage to take a chance on love that had been there all along. And as we gathered our daughter and walked home hand in hand, I knew with absolute certainty that the best decision I'd ever made was opening my eyes to what had been right in front of me all along. Sometimes the most profound truths come disguised as jokes. Sometimes forever is just waiting for you to ask. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, your best friend becomes the love of your life, and every day feels like coming home. So if you're watching this and wondering about that person in your life, that friend who's always been there, who knows you better than anyone, maybe it's time to look a little closer. Maybe it's time to be brave. Because the love of your life might be right in front of you, just waiting for you to see what's been there all along. Thanks for watching my story. If it touched you in any way, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real stories about love, friendship, and finding your way home. Sometimes the greatest adventures begin with the people we already know.